um, but when we get to understand what Cicero really said, uh, goodness is something that you build upon, not only for yourself but really for other people too. Okay. Now, also last week we talked about how conscience now, our frame of conscience, affect the way we think about certain moral decisions or actions that we commit or may commit someday, no? And we can classify all of these into three. You can be moral, you can be immoral, and amoral. Okay? Now, moving forward, we'll take a look into how we as people, no, in this specific lecture, we as people decide on certain things and how emotions, our feelings, no, play a big role with the way we will decide on certain things. And hopefully that decision should be moral, 'di ba? Yun naman yung gusto natin. Okay? So titignan natin yun, how your emotions and feelings will come into play with regards to the moral decisions that you create. Now, also, we'll build again, no, dun sa thought na tayo ay conscious human beings, and that as conscious human beings, we are rational and we can really decide, no, on certain things. Hindi tayo supposedly impulsive, and ang pinaka difference natin, no, sa animals is that we have a way and a capacity to think of the decisions that we will make. Okay? Now, our main objective for this lecture is of threefolds. First is we have to differentiate emotions from feelings. And that, in the second bullet, we have to understand now the contribution and non-contribution to moral decisions of your emotions and feelings. And lastly, we want not to really know the ethics of love. And what is loving anyway? No, is it just simply feeling? Is just an emotion, or there's an ethical part of which that we all need to exercise when we talk of loving? Now, what are emotions? Emotions are distinctive feeling, no, distinguished from reasoning or knowledge, so or beliefs. No, so emotions, according to what has been defined in your module in the online course, these are all of your feelings, no? Distinctive feelings that you can actually put a name to it, no? So ano ba yung mga nararamdaman natin? So technically, we can classify what we feel into 6 different types of emotions, such as happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. So again, you can classify, no, what you feel right now, no, into something that can be named, no, as this 6. Now, according to Lisa Feldman Barrett, she's a neuroscientist, psychologist, and an author. She said that emotions are on the spot meanings that the brain gives to these external and internal sensory input. Now, all of your bodily sensations, all of the sensory inputs are being processed by the mind, and that the mind now provides an interpretation of the external or internal inputs, no? Everything that you excuse me, everything that you get to feel is actually processed by the mind. So, kaya tayo nakakaramdam ng kasiyahan, kaya tayo nakakaramdam ng kalungkutan, ng takot, ng dismaya, ng pagkagalit at pagkagulat. Lahat ito ay, no, processed by the mind. Okay? Based on the sensory input. Pwedeng internal or pwedeng external. Now, the whole experience of emotions, no, since it's constructed in the moment, uh, is based on, again, the sensory input. Sensory input can be anything, no, that surrounds your body. It can include a social and environmental context in terms of the external, no, the external side of it. So everything that happens to you on the outside and also in the internal that can be processed by your sensations. There are five of them, diba? Your sense of touch, sense of seeing, sense of smelling, sense of tasting and hearing. All of these triggers or sensory input, it's being processed by the mind. Technically, the mind is a powerhouse, no? It's more than a computer. However, we have a way also, no, to really process. Unlike the computer, diba, you just simply put everything to it and that you can download and all stored data. At times, 'di ba, the AI now makes it more different now in terms of computers, but technically our mind is also like that, no? We just have to find a way to access all of these stored data kasi nagso-store din ng data yung utak natin. However, yun nga, dahil sa sobrang bilis niya rin mag-store ng data, ilan percent lang ba ang na-access natin. So technically, our brain, no, we get to process only, wala pang 30%, no, ng human mind natin ang na-access, yung conscious mind natin. So there's the 70% that we are not actually uh, putting into uh, work, no? The conscious mind is only the 30%. Now, moving forward, since yung mind natin, pinaprocess niya lahat ng sensory inputs na nanggagaling sa nakikita, nalalasahan, naaamoy, napapakinggan, nahahawakan, or nararamdaman natin, anong ginagawa niya? The mind is basically trained kasi, no, to survive. And that whatever it is that it feels, it produces an interpretation. Now, the kind of interpretation that we provide to all of these sensory inputs, no, is actually a trained one, no? Na-train tayo diyan. Kung bakit tayo natatakot kapag nakakarinig tayo ng ambulance, or kung bakit tayo natutuwa, no, kapag naamoy natin yung, technically, yung amoy ng Jollibee. Kung familiar kayo, 'di ba? May distinctive na amoy ang Jollibee, may distinctive na amoy ang McDonald's. All of these, no, are trained ones, and that it produces something in our mind, no, to interpret all of these sensory input. Now, dahil kaya ng mind na bigyan ng interpretasyon, no, lahat ng ito, parang computer lang din, it automatically saves everything. Okay? Our survival drive, our legacy drive, leisure drive, sexual, and familial drives, lahat to nai-embed, no, sa ating genes, sa ating DNA. And this is why at times, no, there are subconscious things, no, na nagma-manifest, bigla lumalabas. Bakit ka biglang nagagalit kahit hindi mo naman trigger to? Again, it might be a DNA passed to you, no, by your previous ancestors. Okay? Technically, what happens to you kasi today may affect one way or the other your DNA kasi continuously nag-embed sa DNA yung lahat eh, 'di ba? Will it affect your next generation? Yes, 'di ba? Okay, sakit, ano pa ba? Lahat ng sakit natin na ipapasa 'yan sa susunod na henerasyon. Okay, na-embed siya doon sa genes or DNA mo. And same with no, the way we have instinctive response to things. These are all trained, no, by the mind. Now, as human beings, unlike the animals, human beings have a way now to process this one as long as conscious. Okay? So nakapaka-importante na i-recognize natin that our mind is actually a thing that can really work, no, beyond what is expected. Yung akala natin, yung mind natin, ito lang ginagawa. Hindi, ang dami niyang ginagawa. Anong kaya niyang gawin, no? We can actually predict based from what is being presented na sensory input. For example, Isa sensory input mo, nakita mo na may manhole na, you have a way to predict na baka mahulog ka dun sa manhole na yun na nakikita ng mata mo. So anong ite-trigger sa'yo ng utak mo? No, you do not cross that certain street na may manhole na bukas. Kaya ka mag-turn right or to turn left. Ganyan kabilis mag-process yung utak. Okay? Kaya nga, again, anong punto nito no sa ethics? Sa ethics, ang gusto lang natin sabihin dito, dahil ang mind natin nagpo-proseso siya ng mga bagay-bagay, imposibleng sabihin natin na hindi natin napag-isipan yung mga ginagawa natin. Everything that you do, may it be good or bad, all of these are conscious decisions. Okay? And emotions, no, have a very vital role basically in every decisions that we do. Now, again, please do not type your names or whatsoever. You do not need to, as this is being recorded already. No, lahat yan makikita ko sa recording. So no need no to open your cameras, to type in your names whatsoever. Lahat na recorded na. So wag na kayong mabother. Okay? Please. Moving forward, the emotional experiences technically have three parts. Number one, the subjective experiences. No? So, yung sensory input, we can categorize that as well, no, to subjective experience. And that the way our mind process everything, no, the way our mind recalls a certain thing, all of these now are really part of our subjective experiences. And that the subjective experiences, merong counterpart na physiological response agad, no, ang katawan natin sa lahat ng sensory input at mga subjective experience natin. Example, kapag binigyan ka ng paborito mong pagkain, 'di ba? Or hinahiinan ka ng paborito mong pagkain, ang tendency ng katawan natin ay magbigay, no, ng mas maraming saliva o mag-produce ng mas maraming saliva. Same with kapag hindi mo gusto yung pagkain, no, baliktad naman. Bakit ka piniprepare ng katawan mo na dumami yung saliva? Kasi alam niya na gusto mo yung pagkain, trained yung mind mo na gusto mo yung pagkain na yon. So, technically ang gagawin ng pituitary gland mo, no? Iano kanya, ipa-prompt kanya na mag-produce na maraming saliva so that the food that you are about to eat will be processed, no? Ganun siya. Now, what else? Kapag hindi mo gusto yung pagkain, baliktad, no? Tendency natin, na-feel, I don't know if you get to feel that, but technically, mas onte or parang namamalat. May ganung part, no? Or normal lang yung saliva content ng iyong bunganga. So lahat ito po ay controlled by the mind, no? There are physiological response trained by the mind in terms of the response that we give to every situation, no? And all of these are being somehow affected, no, by the sensory input. Anong nakita ng mata mo? Bakit magdadilate yung mata mo? Liliit yung pupil, lalaki yung pupil. Kasi nga trained na yan, no? That's how our body reacts to certain sensory inputs. Bakit kapag blinding yung light, no, ng motor sa harap mo, anong tendency ng mata mo? 'Di ba liliit yung pupil mo para protektahan niya yung mata mo na hopefully hindi ka mabulag sa sobrang striking na light, no? Ganun din sa lungs, sa bowel movements, sa blood vessel mo. Kapag nagagalit ka, tumataas yung BP mo. Bakit tumataas yung BP? Okay? Kasi nga pinaprompt ka ng katawan mo na galit ka, 'di ba? Galit ka kaya ganun. Kaya tumataas na yung blood pressure mo. Or same din kapag takot ka, tumataas yung blood pressure mo. Okay, ganyan kaka-trained yung utak natin for all of these involuntary behaviors na pinoproduce ng ating katawan. Now, ang question dito is that since all of these are involuntary, meaning you do not have a way to control it kasi that's how the mind process it, and that's how the mind works and the body responds. Nasaan ang control? Ang control po ay nasa behavioral response natin sa mga bagay-bagay. Kapag kagalit tayo, tumaas yung BP natin, may way ba tayo para pakalmahin yung sarili natin? The answer is yes. Okay? Alam mo ng taas ng BP mo, galit ka, tapos kukomprontahin mo pa yung tao. Is that a good way to do it? I think no, that's not the way, a good way to do it. Okay? Sana kumalma ka muna, 'di ba? Yun naman dapat. Or alam mo na ang trigger point mo or sensory input mo, naiiyak ka na. Excuse me muna ha. Dahil lang. Nag-a-announce lang yung barangay. Tapusin lang natin so that I can continue the discussion. Okay, so sorry for that. Now moving forward, again, the behavioral response, now we have a way to control it, and that based from the physiological response of your body, definitely you have a control on how to respond no, to all of these stimulus. No? Lahat ito ay stimuli. Pero yung response po ninyo, may paraan. No? Kayo bilang mga tao or tayo bilang mga tao na mag-respond doon sa nararamdaman, sa na nangyayari sa katawan natin based doon nga po sa physiological response na binigay ng katawan natin. So, ayan. Wait lang po. Now that the body has a way to respond, what will now be the role of your conscious mind? Your conscious mind should be trained no, to really process everything. And at times, ayan, kaya may mga decision tayong pinagsisisihan is that may mga decision din tayo that we have made drastically based on the subjective experience, stimulus, or sensory inputs na hindi natin pre-process ng maayos. At hinayaan natin no, na yung sarili natin mag-dive lang dun sa nararamdaman natin. Okay? Again, that's not our goal. Our goal is for us to be really reflective no, of everything. Now, there's a good documentary on this, and you actually know you can watch this after the session. I'll be putting maybe the link no in our VC so that you can watch it as well. But it talks about emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence refers to the ability not to identify and manage one's emotions as well as the emotions of the other people that surrounds you. Now, given that we're talking about EI, okay, and hindi lang IQ ang sinusukat or intelligence quotient ha, ang mas importante ngayon, no, in the time pandemic is that yes, IQ is important, but it's also important that we recognize that we have to build our emotional quotient. And by building your emotional quotient, you are actually building your resilience and emotional intelligence, no? And resilience is actually an emotional intelligence, ha? So, for example, no, in this cards here, it says that the best way to avoid really disappointment is to not expect anything from anyone. Okay? So meaning, since everything is being processed by the mind, you have a conscious decision as to how you process then your behavior or behavioral response to it. So kung nagagalit ka ngayon, okay, possible na nagagalit ka and you have to recognize it because there's something that that person or that certain event, ayan, hindi niya na-meet yung certain standards mo. For example, sa inyong mga partners, di ba? Pagka nag-aaway kayo ng partners ninyo or ng jowa ninyo, okay? So, ba't ba kayo nag-aaway? Possible na may expectation tayo na hindi na-meet, no, nung ating partners. Okay? And that's why we tend to tell to them that this is what I want, this is what I expect. However, again, we cannot really control, no, our partners. We can only inspire them to do such a thing. So yun. Kaya ka nagagalit, kaya ka napo-frustrate pa minsan, 'di ba? Kasi may mga expectation ka dun sa relationship. Now, is it okay to expect or to set standards? Of course, yes. However, it's also more realistic, no, on your end so that hindi ka ma-frustrate dun sa relationship lalo na kung this is just a budding or a date, nasa dating stage pa lang kayo, no? Na yes, you set standards, but when we talk about ethics of loving mamaya, maiintindihan natin na these standards and the one we will really love at times will never meet any of these standards. And that's loving technically, 'di ba? Yun naman yun. Kaya mo minamahal, kaya mo iniintindi beyond the imperfections or not really meeting your standards or expectation because that's love, no? Love is supposedly you actually having that patience towards that person, no? And if they change, good. If they not change, hopefully you think about how the relationship is really going for that person, 'di ba? Kasi we do not want naman ourselves not to be put in a relationship na one way. Okay? So more of these later now when we talk about ethics of love. So simply we can put emotional intelligence as an intelligence, no? You really knowing how to control your behavioral response to a certain thing. Now, what are feelings? Feelings is an emotional state or reaction to certain thing. Okay? So, pag tinatanong kayo na how are you feeling today, 'di ba? There are many response to it. You can be happy, you can be sad, you can be angry, you can be worried, you can be shy, excited, surprised, silly or embarrassed. And later, you will have an activity no after this lecture that technically will tell more about your emotions and feelings. So pinipreps ko na kayo ha. Pag-uusapan natin yan mamaya after ng lecture na to. Now, feelings are the conscious experiences or experience of emotions or reactions. No, that's according to Brian Farnsworth. Now, when you look at someone's face, nagtitrigger ba siya ng feeling? Of course, yes, di ba? Kapag crush mo yan, iba ang dating. Kapag marites yan, nakapitbahay mo, iba rin ang dating. Di ba? Kapag a friend na unexpected na nakita mo or tinawagan ka, iba rin yung feeling na pwede mong maramdaman. So again, these are just emotional state. All of your feelings are emotional state. And do you have to recognize it? Yes. No, importanteng nire-recognize yan. No? Part of a healthy way to deal with your emotions is to recognize what you are technically feeling. So kung galit ka, you have to recognize that you're actually angry. Hindi pwedeng sabihin na, naku, hindi mabuti para sa, sabi sa ethics, 'di ba? Dapat hindi ako nagagalit. Hindi po ganun. Normal na nagagalit ang tao. Okay lang magalit. Pero, makaramdam ng galit ha. Okay lang makaramdam ng galit, pero yung galit na ibabato mo sa ibang tao, meron kang way not to process that. All of your behavioral response based on what you feel. If you feel excited, what's your behavioral response? You have a control to that. When you feel embarrassed by a situation, you have a way no to control your behavioral response to that. So again, whatever it is that you are feeling, you have a way now to control all of your behavioral response. And when we talk of emotional intelligence, you are actually being wise no with the behavioral response that you are to give out of a certain feeling or emotional state. Now, the following are wrong and sometimes harmful ideas no, or myths about feelings and emotions. Number one is that sometimes, no, or maybe one way or the other, you have believed that your emotions are actually hardwired by evolution and that our limbic or reptilian brain are and emotions are actually triggered. So again, all of our responses, all of our physiological response po, trained siya ha. So for some of you, pag nakakita kayo ng ipis, iba yung pwedeng maging physiological response nyo to that. Okay? Iba rin ang iba-iba tayo ng physiological response no to every subjective experience. Some of you are not scared no by crawling animals, 'di ba? But some of you are actually scared. So magiging yung subjective experience natin, iba-iba din ang ating physiological response to that, no? So, another myth is that across the globe, humans have universal facial expressions for core emotions such as joy causes now smiling. Uh, a concrete example for this one is that technically you can not really judge an emotional state now based on what you see na outside. Kasi there are people who are actually sad but is the happiest, no? Projects the happiest character inside the room. In fact, most depressed person diagnosed with depression, they tend to have that coping mechanism that when they are faced with a lot of people, they become jolly, no? May mga ganyan ha. So again, importante talaga that we go beyond what we see, no? And when we know that someone feels a little bit different, it's important to ask them yung kumusta, no? Yung kumusta ka, napaka-importante nun. Napaka-importante nun na nangangamusta tayo sa mga tao kung ano ba talagang nararamdaman nila. Now, another myth is that the amygdala is the fear center of the brain. No, amygdala helps us process everything. Okay, not only fear, no? Amygdala actually controls all if not but no most of your responses no nako-control niya yan. Okay, actually tinatawag nga yung heart of the brain eh. The amygdala is your heart of the brain. Why is that so? Kasi pinaprocess niya lahat ng emotions mo. Okay? And the amygdala has a way now to produce certain hormones. No? Iti-trigger niya yung katawan mo na mag-produce ng certain hormones to to help you process no what you are feeling. So for example, nalulungkot ka, maglalabas yan ng hormones na hopefully hindi ka sasaya ha, but to process no whatever it is that you feel. So importante na dahil may physiological response ngayong katawan natin sa mga bagay-bagay, kung alam mong harmful yung mangyayari sa iyo kapag ka example malungkot ka na nga, 'di ba? Tapos nag-trigger ka panonood ka pa ng Korean na palabas na magpapaiyak sa iyo. So anong gagawin ni amygdala? Ang gagawin ni amygdala, magpo-produce din siya ng hormones para maiyak ka lalo. So again, there are healthy crying, there are unhealthy crying, no? Ako, I do healthy crying from time to time, no? Because it's important, no, to process your suppressed emotions. Okay? So I hope, no, you also do from time to time, no, na yung talagang sinasadya mong umiiyak. Okay? Pero hindi rin maganda na sinasadya mong umiyak every time, no. Hindi naman maganda 'yon, no. So ang emotional intelligence kasi it's you really knowing what kind of behavioral response will you give to a certain feeling that you are feeling right now. When you're happy, hopefully, you allow yourself to feel that happiness, but do not decide when you are at peak of happiness or at peak of sadness, at peak of surprise, no? Kasi lahat ng nasa peak emotions, technically hindi, again, emotions are there, no? No, para maramdaman mo siya. Pero to decide based on what you just feel is also not that beneficial, because there are a lot of decisions like at the peak of anger, 'di ba? Nakakatakot 'yun. Baka hindi mo makontrol yung sarili mo. Or when you are at the peak of sadness, baka hindi mo pagsisihan mo yung decision mo. So behavioral response is everything, no? When we talk of how you process your emotions. Now moving forward, the next slide. Meat is that we cannot go wrong trusting our gut, no, or feeling or instinct. Ang tawag dito sa Tagalog, kutob. Okay? Marami nagsasabi sa atin, di ba, yung mga matatanda, naku, pakinggan mo yung kutob mo dyan. Now, minsan kasi ang problema dito is unfounded yung kutob. Okay? Yung gut feeling natin unfounded. And imbes na i-clarify natin, I'll give you an example to this, no? Ano ba yung mga kinukutuban tayo? For example, kinukutuban tayo na may iba na yung partner natin. Minsan unfounded yun, no? Nag-iba lang ng ano, no? Naiba lang ng routine yung partner mo. Ikaw naman na paranoid minsan, okay? Akala mo ano ka na, no? Pinagpapalit ka na or whatsoever. So, if there's a kutob or a gut feeling about a certain thing, the best way to really, your behavioral response to it should be to clarify, no, to ask directly from your partner, because at the end of the day, our relationship should be really founded with trust, no, in communication. Most failed relationships, because we'll be talking about ethics of love, most failed relationships are really coming from the idea that these couples do not talk eye to eye. Okay? Ano yung eye to eye? Ang ibig sabihin mo dyan, sir? Kasi ang communication, no, ay napaka-importante sa kahit anong relasyon, no? Even married people, 'di ba? Most married people na may happy marriage, nag-uusap sila. Yun yung napaka-importante. And that may trust doon sa pag-uusap na kahit nakakasakit na sila, okay, or nagkakasakitan sila at times verbally, may way sila to process everything, no, to say sorry if there's a need to say sorry, or to process nga. Unhealthy ang isang relasyon na hindi pinaprocess, no, yung mga bagay-bagay through communication. And again, iba-iba rin naman kasi tayo ng languages of love. But at the end of the day, it's really important that we get to say what we mean, and we mean what we say. No, kung natatakot ka, kung nagagalit ka dun sa ginawa, no, ng mga tao na nasa paligid mo, your partners, your friends, your family, and relationship is not only confined to eros, which we will talk about later, no, or romantic relationships. All of your relationships should be founded with trust in the person, and communicating that trust, no, to them properly. Now, another is that when we talk of emotions now, emotions or feelings do not play any role in human act and is not justifiable with regard to moral decisions. Meaning, hindi mo pwede kasing i-present sa tao na kaya mo ginawa yun dahil ito yung naramdaman mo. Although ginagawa natin to, no? You know, hindi ko sasabihin mali siya, pero again, it has repercussions kasi, no? Kaya natin siya pinag-uusapan sa ethics para hopefully ma-process natin yung sarili natin na kapag ka nasa peak ka ng emotion, you do not decide agad. Allow that emotion, feel that emotion, and that when you're ready to decide what your next course of action will be, hopefully that decision parehas na magbe-benefit, no? Hindi lang ikaw, mag-benefit din yung tao. At minsan, yung mga ganitong klaseng decision din, no? Hindi siya yung decision na madaling gawin, 'di ba? May mga decision talaga tayo na kailangan gawin na mahirap siya gawin, pero mas magiging beneficial, no, for the both of you in whatever type of relationship you are in. Now, human acts are human actions men perform knowingly, freely, and voluntarily. So we all know that when we get to act on a certain thing, hindi siya pwedeng sabihin na unconscious will. Everything is a conscious will. You coming to class is a conscious will. You listening in this class is a conscious will. No? Now, human acts must have three qualifications. Number one, all of our human acts are made, no, when we are fully aware of things. And hindi pwedeng hindi ka fully aware sa nangyayari sa iyo, ha? No? Mali sabihin na hindi, nadala lang ako sa emosyon kaya ako ginawa. Hindi. Aware ka kung bakit mo sinaktan yung tao, bakit mo pinasaya yung tao, bakit mo pinakilig yung tao. Lahat ito po, aware ka sa ginagawa mo. Hindi pwedeng sabihin na hindi ka aware. Pangalawa, you have a freedom of choice to decide, no, based on your free will. So lahat ng ginagawa natin, mabuti o masama, these are all based on our free will. And the third, our decisions are actually not coerced by any outside factor. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin sa korte na ginalit niya ako kaya ako penantay siya. Hindi po pwede yun. Yung the act, the behavioral response to the stimulus which is ginagalit ka niya, may free will ka kasi on what to do next. And this is why, ayan, yung importante no na kung easily angered person, you have to really process. You have to find the time to process what you feel. Now, let's talk about the ethics of love. Ano ba ang love? Feelings lang ba siya? No? So tignan natin. Love is an intense feeling of deep affection. So there's a feeling involved, no, when we fall in love or fall out of love, kasi marami yan, di ba? Pwede ka ma-fall out of love, fall in love, no? Now, again, there's an intense feeling, no, that you get to associate with it. Pwedeng masaya, pwedeng malungkot, depende, no? Depende sa kung nasa ang state ka ng loving a person. Now, man can love another person, thing, or event, even if it does not render love in return. So, that's the truth, no? Na kahit wala kang response na nakukuha, dahil gustong-gusto mo yung taong yun, di ba doon naman nagsisimula, sa gustong-gusto natin sila, no? Pero, conscious decision din na may gawin ka out of everything that you get to feel, no? Gusto mo siya, hindi mo siya gusto, may conscious will ka, no? Anong gagawin mong next, okay? So man can love another person even if walang ROI. Man can love another person or an event or a thing even if walang ROI. Okay? Ganyan tayo siguro talaga ginawa no bilang tao. Now, the ethical aspects in love involve the moral appropriateness of loving. Okay? So, ang point lang natin dito is that hopefully, we're not all loving because based on what we feel. Because if you are to really put premium to what love is a verb, diba? Love is a constant decision to be with that person regardless of their imperfections. Diba? Kaya nga sa Corinthians 13:4 verse to 8. I do not know if you're Christians, pero napakaganda no na sinasabi dito that love is actually patient, it's kind, it does not envy or boast, it's not arrogant or rude, it's do not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Okay? And technically, love never ends, sabi daw dito. Pero alam niyo may kasunod pa to na sinasabi. Okay? 'Di ba sabi sa susunod na verse diyan that 'di ba, believes all things, hope all things, endure all things. But if certain things or the mind becomes more prevalent no than then all of these things that you get to feel or you get to serve, technically love will end. Na parang ganon. Sinasabi dun sa next na verse na sa line na yan. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Simple lang na may way tayo, no, to decide on certain things, and may way tayo as people to check on whether this type of love that you are feeling right now is actually a love that fits you well, or a love that suits you well. So if it is not really for at the moment some na talagang para sa you, technically you know very well, no, you have to decide, no, whether to continue it or not. And that there are different kinds of love. And the ancient Greeks actually has a word for every types of love, no? At maganda tong pag-usapan. So, ano-ano daw to? So, romantic love is called eros, no? The Greeks have, again, the Greeks have a word for it, no? For sensual or romantic love, and it's called eros. And that eros is actually physical, sensual intimacy between partners. Now, philia is the term, no, you use for affection between friends or family members. Now, another, so you have philia, you have eros, and you also have agape. Agape is a form of love that is commonly referred to as neighborly love, or sometimes universal love. And that when we talk of this kind of love, no, it rests on the idea that all people are technically our brothers and sisters, and that since we deserve care and respect, dapat ganun din tayo, no? Nagbibigay tayo ng respect and care sa mga tao. So, when we talk of loving, no, ang sabi lang dito, no, ni Marcus Aurelius, technically, the quality of happiness or the quality of any emotional state or emotions that we get to feel depends upon the quality of our thoughts. Because we have a way, no, to really process everything in terms of our behavioral response to whatever sensory inputs that is being presented. So as people, as humans, and conscious of our human acts, now it's important that we become thoughtful of what we do. Okay, so this ends the specific lecture on feelings and moral decisions. Now, moving forward, we'll have a way now, no, to check on you in terms of what you are feeling. Okay, so I'll be calling you one by one, and that what I want you to do right now first is to choose, no, to choose a number. So a number represents any of these feelings, and what I want you to do is to share about the number that you have chosen. Okay? So, unahin muna natin na pumili muna kayo ng number. So, the chat box now is open. I want you to type to everyone the number that you have chosen. Isa lang out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Type it now in the chat box. Okay. Adnan said 1. How about the others? Sige po, pili na. Ayan, pili na po kayo ha. And you hold to that number. Just one number out of 6. Okay. Sige lang. Go ahead and type it in the chat box. Okay. Sige. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'll be calling you one by one. And please provide me the number that you have chosen. So Adnan, can you unmute your mic and choose a number or give me the number that you have chosen?
Sir, 1 po, sir.
So 1. So for everyone na nasa 1, ito ang ibig sabihin ng number 1 ha. Number 1 is I want you to share to me a thing that makes you happy. Okay? So again, para sa lahat ng pumili ng number 1, ang ibig sabihin ng number 1 ay share something that makes you happy. Okay? So Adnan, can you share us something that makes you happy?
Spending time with my wife, sir.
Okay. So why spending time with your wife a happy thing for you or happy emotional state for you?
Because I love her, sir.
Okay, thank you, Adnan. Now we move to Arjane. Arjane, can you unmute your mic? What number did you choose?
Number 5 po.
Okay, for all those who have chosen number five, ayan. What makes you angry? Arjane, what makes you angry?
There's a lot of things that makes me angry actually. Kasi short-tempered ako eh.
Mm-mm.
Um,
On top of your list
maybe
is,
um pinakayo ko is when I am actually being disturbed when I'm in the mood to be,
mm-mm.
like minumuni ko yung peacefulness ko kasi masyado akong introvert.
Okay. So same with me, no? You're introvert as well. Okay, so ayaw mo na dinidisturb yung ano mo, yung introvert moments mo. Ganun ba 'yon?
Yes po.
Okay, thank you Arjane for sharing. Now we move to Axel. Axel, can you give us your number and then let's try to find out what that number says. Axel, unmute your mic please.
Sir, 3 po.
3. So for all those who have chosen number 3, this is what we mean by number 3. Number 3 is, Axel, can you share something about a poor choice that you have made and what you have done differently? So again, ano yung isang desisyon na ginawa